Hello and welcome to another edition of Video Games to the Max. I am your host, Sean Garmer, here with me as usual, Mr. Mark Morrison.
Howdy.
And well, if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail of the video, you know what happened today is the Game Award nominations. So we're going to go through that, give our predictions, and also talk about some controversy from the decisions. We may have a special guest that wasn't very happy about that decision to join us here. Not sure. Still trying to work that out, but we'll see. I've been playing Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remake. Can finally say that I have been. So I'll talk about that here. Also, Phil Spencer had a huge interview with Bloomberg where he basically reiterates and also kind of gives you some outline of where things are going. And not to mention they started this interesting marketing campaign too. So we'll get into that. The Splinter Cell movie got canceled, as if we kind of figured it probably would at some point. And Marc's been playing more Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 as well. So we'll get into all that and more right after this.
You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
All right, so just to go ahead and get this out of the way with the housekeeping. If this is your first time watching or listening, or it's your several time you've done this now, we do appreciate you. Thank you to all those that are here every week. It's awesome. Appreciate that you listen or watch, and you can watch live, usually around like 7 o'clock or so on Mondays. Is when we do the show on W2 Network on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. And if you want to watch later, you can just subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can get it on demand whenever you want. Also, we do other shows on the network that's not just us here at Video Games to the Max. So if you like anime, you got the Otaku Cafe guys that do amazing work at basically kind of reviewing a lot of the shows that come out every season. And there's plenty of good stuff for the fall. So if you want to hear what they have to say about Dan to Dan or Dragon Ball Daima or 365 Days to Wedding or whatever other Blue Box, whatever other anime is going on, they're talking about it. Go watch them. And then also the Radlicher Broadcasting folks, they do all the entertainment stuff. So if you like movies, TV shows, all that, they keep up with that for us here as well. They do a great job, so definitely go check them out. And they even did a kind of like an alternative commentary on the I don't know if you call that a fight or a dance that happened you could watch on Netflix between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. So yeah, I feel really bad with the people that were in that AT&T stadium. That must have been terrible to pay all that money to be there for that. But anyway, yeah, that's it for the housekeeping here. I guess let's go ahead and start with the games. Give Randy a little bit of time to see if he's gonna be able to be on or not. But you want to start first, I guess, with your how much more of Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 have you been able to play?
We played about 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. So yeah, we're like, I don't want to say like halfway through. We're probably about at least a third. It's all right. It's a good kind of Gears of War clone. Same as the last one. Although it's very similar to the first one. Only you're not facing orcs, you're facing Tyranids, which are like the Zerg of StarCraft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like the third or fourth mission we get jetpacks. And that was a lot of fun to like jump around with, and you get like a lot more verticality, and that was cool. And Jens and his friend David, we were all enjoying it. And right after that section or that level, I'm like, all right, well, that was that section. And Jens was like, you don't think they'll let us use these for the rest of the game? I'm like, fuck no. Like, hell no. And it's funny because, like, the next mission, we all got the thing strapped to our back still. We just can't do anything with them,
Right.
So it's like, why don't you just take it off? Or, like say, oh, it's out of fuel. Or give some reason. I don't care if it's a lame reason, but give some reason to say, like, oh, this is why I can't use this anymore. But nope.
That's interesting. What? Yeah,
Yeah.
why that decision?
Right. I don't know. Well, it's pretty kind of standard. The only kind of annoying thing, one annoying thing a little is like we each kind of have different abilities. Like my guy can like have this like radar thing, and then Jens's guy can like temporarily increase his own damage. But it's like, why can't we pick that from the start? Or like why isn't this just like a Halo style like upgrade system? Or I mean, or not system, but just let us have like 3 or 4 perk options, and whatever one we want, we pick it. Like we're like
Right.
playing like specific. It's almost like character classes because like we're actually like named characters in the story, but there's like no option for. I mean, there's like very little option for customization, except for like starting weapons, which most of them are lame, and we swap out like immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. Runs well. Yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's like I said, I think it's a little standard, but we don't get many games anymore, so you gotta enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, definitely. It's a throwback to the old 360, kind of Gears of War type titles.
Yeah.
Like you said, we don't get them that much anymore, so I'm still interested in kind of looking at it. I'm kind of eyeing. That's one of the games I'm eyeing at. Hopefully, it gets in a sale, especially with Game Awards. They always do some kind of sale or Black Friday sale, and
Right.
I might decide to pick it up because it is kind of on my list of. Okay, let's see how many of these games I can get to before we do the choosing game of the year lists and stuff like that.
Yep.
That we're also going to be doing as well. So, anything else?
Put a little more Prince of Persia. Don't like it. I mean, further, but don't like the combat at all.
Okay.
And yeah, that's about it.
All right. Well, let me. I guess before I bring on Rainy, let me just get through this here. So, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake has been the game that I haven't been able to talk about for a couple of weeks, just mainly because of where the show falls. But I got to play it on Switch, so that's where the code came in from. Thanks to Square Enix for providing the code. And whether this is your first kind of okay, so I'm going to backtrack and go. Dragon Quest is kind of one of those games that has always been the way it is, right? It's an old school JRPG, old school in that it is old school. Welcome, Randy, Isabel, to the episode here. But it is absolutely sticks to what it is. It is Dragon Quest 3 the way you remember it, pretty much, as far as the gameplay goes. It looks beautiful. It is the best version of HD 2D they have ever used or had. And that's saying a lot because Octopath Traveler itself, especially Octopath Traveler 2, looked great, last year. So they've already upped that. Of course, this has been in development for a while. It got announced during a stream with Dragon Quest 12, and we have no idea what's going on with Dragon Quest 12. Last we heard, there was possibly some kind of development issues going on with that. Hopefully, not anything too serious or whatnot. But honestly, it's one of these games where I didn't know. I've played Dragon Quest 3 before. Didn't get too far into it. Actually, the Switch version when it came to, when those 3 games came to Switch. Just to try it out because I hadn't played. Only Dragon Quest games I'd played before that was 7 on the 3DS and then 11, obviously. And it's kind of crazy to think how much that game is still very similar to the way 11 is. And then also there's I don't want to spoil it. There's sort of a tie-in between 11 and that whole trilogy. But honestly, it's kind of like if you like JRPGs especially the old school style, it's almost like a cozy game in a way. It's almost like this goes back to what I remember playing on the SNES or whatever, or the GBA, or whatever your best time of JRPGs is from. So it has a lot of the archaic Dragon Quest and JRPG stuff in it. It has a lot of grinding. It has you can't select who you want to fight again, who you want to battle against. They have to be in a certain group, and then you can then destroy them depending on that. The ability, the job system is interesting because you can actually create your own party from the beginning and decide which of the different jobs you want them to have from the moment that they appear. Or you can go in later in the game and decide that you want to change your mage to a merchant or your cleric to a thief or whatever. So it gives you a lot of options, which is different than a lot of the Dragon Quest games. But again, it's one of these where it's like, it's beautiful to walk around the world with a world map. It's has the traditional Dragon Quest music. It's just kind of one of these where it's like, you got to know what you're getting into. If you're not used to the old school style of JRPGs, I wouldn't go running out to pick this up, because it's going to bug you that you have to grind. It's going to bug you that you have to go from town to town and kind of figure out what's going on. Yes, you can go get a guide. The guide's the same because the game's the same. You can go find a guide on GameFAQs and pretty much figure out where you got to go. They also have navigational tools in this game, which is different than obviously the originals. So it will give you, okay, here's your quest marker. Here's where you need to go, right? But you won't get it won't tell you where, like, every single side quest is in the game or whatever. You still have to find those things. It still wants you to explore, because if you go in, this is one of those games where it's like, go touch a barrel and you might find an item in it, right? So they kept all of that stuff in there. So again, you like Dragon Quest 3? This is Dragon Quest 3 but prettier, with not a lot of enhancements, but still, it's Dragon Quest 3 in the best version of Dragon Quest 3 that there is. I really enjoy it. I can kind of understand the people that, I saw people getting mad because Eurogamer gave it a 6 or whatever. I can kind of understand that if you're used to modern games, they definitely not try to modernize this game that much. So, but still, go pick it up on your Switch or PlayStation or Xbox or whatever if you enjoy these kind of games. It definitely adds to the crazy year that's been for JRPGs. It feels like we are in a deluge of them, and there's even one more coming out in December, so we're not done quite yet. But all right, now that we have Randy on here, you told me you've been playing Balatro.
Yeah, I've been playing Balatro for a while. Off and on, it's a lot of fun. I don't know how much you guys have talked about it, but it is an addicting little game.
Yeah,
it's an addicting card game that is perfect for. I got 10 minutes. I'm gonna mess around a little bit, or I'm frustrated at said game. Let me go be frustrated with a card game that kicks my butt. So it's perfect. It's wild that it has been put up for Game of the Year, but I'm loving it. It's been such a fun thing, and I'm not smart enough to be like, it's not, if you ever watch like the really good players play that game and how they break that system, I'm not that smart. It beats me every time, but I have a lot of fun trying to figure out what all the jokers do, and getting mad that I don't have the right setup, or getting mad at myself when I do get the right setup and I screw it up really quick. I do that a lot. The game's so much fun though.
I had a question because I had, it depends on like who you talk to. I see like Jeff Grubb plays it a lot, and others, and they always talk about like, okay, if you know poker a lot, it kind of is a little bit easier.
No.
Do you feel like that has anything to do with it, or
honestly, it really doesn't? I mean, it goes off of poker hands, so I guess you have to understand that a flush beats a straight and that kind of stuff. But I mean, it spells it out for you when you look at the points list of what you're trying to get. But then the jokers mess with that. Like, there's been times where I win a run and it's just because I got the right jokers where two paired just dominates, and you go crazy with that. Or you get a Joker that turns all hearts and diamonds as the same suit. So then flushes kind of become what you're going for, and you try to mess around with that. So, I mean, in a way, there are slight advantages at first of knowing what a poker hand is that will allow you to kind of get a quicker grasp of things. But really, especially when the Jokers start kind of becoming your main focus, you don't really need to know any of that stuff.
Fair enough. Just wanted to.
Yeah.
Is it easy to get into, or?
It is easy to get into, hard to master, and I am far from mastering. That's for sure. As long as you are totally fine, like I am. I'm not going to complete most of the runs that I do. Then yeah, it's totally fine.
All right. Well, you've also been playing Silent Hill 2 Remake. You beat it, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. My son has almost beat it. We've been talking about it a lot. I just started my new game plus, got the chainsaw, and getting my revenge on a lot of stuff right now and having a good time with it. It is, I mean, not to get too spoilery, and I know you guys have talked about it a lot. And I know Mark and I probably disagree on some of the stuff. It's my second best game of the year. It has me completely enthralled, and I hate to say it. I mean, I need to go back and play the original because it has been probably a decade since I last touched the original. But there are not a lot of things from my memory of the original that I don't think that the remake did better, which is not what I was expecting going into this. I mean, I told you guys years ago when we found out Bloomberg Team was making Silent Hill 2. It was like the one thing that I didn't like about Bloomberg Team games was they didn't have a great story. So they took somebody else's story and they made a good game about it. It's like they just took that story and did things their own way, didn't change a lot of it. There are characters that I think are so much better in this remake than in the original. I think they fixed Eddie. I thought he was a lot more fleshed out. Some of the other bosses, I think, were a little bit more entertaining and not just, okay, you're just shooting somebody in a room, which was great. I do get a lot of the criticism. The action is still not fantastic, and there's far more of it in this one than needs to be. So I do understand the criticism that can get a little tiring. But watching other people play this game, I realize I play the game a lot different. I'm a scaredy cat. And I ran by a lot more things than other people did. Like there were sections where people would get all upset. There's so much enemies. Like I didn't swing my pipe at a single one of these guys. Like I ran by them and freaked out every 2 seconds. So it's fantastic. And I mean, if you have started it and you haven't beat it, get to the prison, man. Once you get to the prison, and wear headphones. That's the other thing I recommend. If you have a good set of headphones and you get to that prison, and come back to me afterwards and tell me if it had the same impact it did on you as it did me, because I was pooping my pants from the sounds that were going on throughout that prison, and there was nothing on the screen. Yeah. I would go 10 minutes without seeing an enemy because I had cleared out a room or whatever, and I would still be absolutely horrified that other things are going to come out because the sound design of this game is amazing.
Yeah, it definitely deserves all of the awards for audio design. Just I'm not even wearing headphones, and the sounds coming from the speaker are freaking me out. So I'm like, I can imagine people wearing headphones and you're hearing that all the time. It's kind of like it's not as egregious, it's not as crazy as the Senua whispers or whatever, but it's still pretty like kind of like horrifying. And then when you get the sound that comes on and the whole effect that comes on when an enemy gets near you, it's like, oh, this is just it's incredible as far as like the survival horror of it, the whole psychological thing. They did that really well.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I get Mark's point about the combat too.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just they made it easier also, so like you can get into that whole thing with the dodge where an enemy won't hit you if you get good at it.
And I'm not. I was not. I used every healing item I possibly could through that game because I was struggled with it. Especially, no spoilers, but there's a boss 3/4 of the way through the game that I was stockpiled for, and I beat it with no health left because I absolutely sucked at it. It wasn't because the boss was bad. I could not figure it out. So,
all right. Well, glad to hear you've been enjoying both Silent Hill 2 Remake and Balatro. Two games that we're going to talk about probably a lot here as the Game Awards nominations have released here. This basically at noon Eastern today. Geoff Keighley did the 12-minute video showing off the nominees, and we'll get into I kind of want to save that for a little bit. Let's go through some of the categories and stuff, and we can save the rants and raves till we get through that. Just so that maybe there's people watching or listening that haven't don't even know what the nominees are yet, and then for us to start ranting and raving about stuff, and then they'll be like, let's get to this here. So first off, we'll do game of the year at the end, just so we can kind of bleed into that. But before the whole thing got announced, I think it was I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday, whichever. Geoff Keighley released some kind of little statement, basically announcing something that's already been there before, because they have nominated remakes, obviously, for Game of the Year in the past, right? Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, now Rebirth. Remasters have been on there before. Basically, this entire statement that he put out has been in the rules previously. He just made it a point, because he knew what was going to come out, that remakes, remasters, DLC, basically everything goes, as long as it came out in 2024. And so, when we go through these awards and you see a certain game, it led to a lot of discussion on various social media today. So, but let's just start here, since it's a category that all of us are, big fans of. Best RPG, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Metaphor ReFantazio, and Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is included in here as well. It will also be in various other categories. What do you think? Is there I want to win, I want this game to win, but I think this other game's going to win for you, or is it aligned on both? Mark?
I think Rebirth is the popular pick, but parts of that game are too screwed up. Right. So I'd probably go with ReFantazio or maybe Infinite Wealth. Dragon's Dogma 2, I don't know, it kind of just came and went.
Right.
And Shadow of the Erdtree is not, it's great as a more campaign, I guess, but not doing much new.
Yeah. I worry that Elden Ring, I hope not, but I worry Elden Ring is going to sweep categories, and it's going to be kind of disingenuous to the people to the games that did come out this year that are new.
If but only there was a guy running the Game Awards who could outlaw this thing.
Right. But we'll get into that. Randy, you still think it's Rebirth, or?
Obviously for me it's Rebirth. My personal opinion, everything I've heard, I have not played Metaphor. It's not my style of game. I've messed around with the demo a little bit. Still have not gotten through said demo, because again, it's just not my style of RPG, and I'm not going to knock anybody that likes it, because obviously it sounds like it's fantastic for those. But I honestly think it'll probably be Metaphor, if not for Rebirth. I feel bad for Like a Dragon, because it did seem like it was a pretty good game, but like you said, RPGs have been insane this year. And I feel like a Dragon is going to get the Spider-Man treatment or the Horizon treatment, where it was a great game, but it's just not going to win anything.
Yeah. I'm a little bit worried about that for Rebirth, because Metaphor is so strong in almost all of the categories that Rebirth is in. So honestly, Metaphor is like that darling that everybody played right before they did these nominations. So I'm a little bit worried about is Metaphor going to wind up trumping Rebirth? Because there's a lot of people that really liked Rebirth, but then they play Metaphor and Metaphor like knocked out of the park for them. And then they kind of went back to Rebirth and go, oh man, there's some things about Rebirth that I didn't necessarily like now that I played, Metaphor. So, gonna be interesting to see if that has an effect on anything, as well. Like a Dragon was a fantastic game that I'm glad to see was in here. Infinite Wealth. Just I feel like it's one of those where it sucks that you come out so early in the year because so many other games can come out right after you. And the earlier you came out, the harder it is for you to stick. But I'm glad with all the RPGs that have come out this year, it's still on the list. And people loved it enough to nominate it. So that's cool too. And Dragon's Dogma 2 was great for its time. It had its little moment where it was in the zeitgeist, but like Marc said, it kind of came and went, Getting into best action adventure game, which is
another category.
This is where it's like I agree with he's the one that talks about this a lot, but Blessing on Kind of Funny always has to mention that this category is just kind of absurd.
It's dumb.
But it's also absurd because we have there's a lot of Metroidvanias, right? You could technically have Metroidvania category and you have enough to make 5. But let's say like with action game, you don't necessarily have that many shooters anymore. So you can't have shooter be its own category. So it kind of makes sense why.
Can. I mean, because shooter's not in this category. There's no Call of Duty.
Well, it's an and they are an action game, but that's why Call of Duty. There used to be a best shooter category when shooters were a lot more prevalent, but because they're not as much, they've kind of condensed it into action is basically if the game's all about action and not so much about going on some kind of journey, it goes into action game, and if it's more about, I guess, platforming or Metroidvania or not so much combat, but other stuff, it's action adventure, I guess, is the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
So action adventure, Astrobot, Prince of Persia, Lost Crown, Silent Hill 2, Star Wars Outlaws, and Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Star Wars Outlaws is kind of weird, right? Like, this was a game that I remember way more not so much great praise for, and somehow it still makes this.
Yeah, there shouldn't be games on here that like the director's going like, oh, we're gonna fix it now, or we fired the old director, and now we got a new one on here, and now we're gonna actually make the game work.
I mean, but it's also like most of the people that are doing this decision making are the same critics that overall gave it a 77. So it's weird. It's like there's no other action adventure game here. Like, if we're going to include Metroidvanias, there's an indie game that's in best indie game that could have easily gone in here instead, But I feel like we have to have the big franchise name in here, and it's a bit of a weird decision, but.
Well, which of the studios actually was able to pay Geoff Keighley money? Ubisoft.
I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that about whether or not he tries to not make himself part of the decision making process. I don't know. Obviously, does he perhaps at the end of the day maybe make some decisions after everything's already said and done? Who knows? But we're probably going to know that, right? I don't like kind of speculating on that kind of stuff. He does have final decisions on this whole big controversy that has happened, but he tries to do things his own way. It is what it is. We know what this is here for. It's not really so much about the awards. It's about the other things that happen on this evening. But what do you think is going to probably win?
Astrobot?
I hope it's Astrobot.
Two of those games aren't great technically or have too many issues. And the other two games aren't action adventure games.
Yeah,
and one of those games is kind of bad. So
I think it's also like the same thing with like survival horror. I don't think there's enough survival horror games on that same like echelon where you could have its own category.
Or you could just be horror at that
Or
point.
horror, yeah. The horror,
I don't know,
yeah, they
horror
definitely
or
could.
scary games or
Yeah, but if it's
spooky
just horror,
games.
it's going to be like 4 of those fucking Five Nights at Freddy's games and something else. It's,
No,
you
there's
know.
a lot of indie horror games that come
Yeah.
out every year that could easily go in there with Silent Hill and whenever you have a Resident Evil or whatever.
Listen, I understand why a certain game did not get nominated anywhere because it is hanging on to just making my personal top 10, and I really liked it. But Crow County is a horror game that nobody seems to have played, and it's absolutely fantastic and could have gotten just a nod. But again, I'm not gonna go over the nominees and stuff because this is just the fun stuff, and this is to create debate, and that's totally fine. And whatever. This category always makes me laugh because I have not played Outlaws, I've not played Zelda, but the other 3 games are 3 of my top 4 games of the year right now.
Yeah.
So this is brutal for me that I have to pick one of them. I will say Astrobot will win. But yeah, Astrobot, Prince of Persia, Silent Hill are literally 2, 3, and 4 right now. And I have yet to decide the order officially. And it's very difficult, but this category is always tough because this is my category. Like these are the kind of games that I play because they jumble them all together.
Right.
None of them have anything to do with each other. They're all different, but I don't know.
They do this to you. Sorry. Astrobot for me is my number 2. So, and I definitely think Astrobot's gonna win some categories here for sure.
I agree.
At the expense of Silent Hill 2, but yeah.
I know we're not going to spend a lot of time on this category, so can I just do a mini rant?
Sure.
Just one mini one. Yeah, I was just talking about how I'm not going to get hard on nominations, but how does college football come back after over a decade and not get into the best sports game?
Because this is a global.
Because Top Spin is just better, man. Come on.
Maybe it is. I haven't played a Top Spin since 2, so I don't. I don't know.
No, it's a global list, and nobody outside of the United States plays college football, unfortunately. So.
At least Madden did not make it. All right, if Madden made it and college football did not, then
I do think that it sucks that like college football couldn't make it when it's obviously, especially for being gone so long and being an actually really great game. Yeah, not get nominated.
Right? The only time we can sit here and say it's not just a rehash of last year's game,
right?
From now on, that's all we can do.
It should get rewarded for that. It kind of sucks that we're not putting on. One of the times you could have done, because we have like a few categories where he just randomly decides that you were going to have 6. Why couldn't you have 6 in here and put college football, which is certainly deserving? But
yeah, that's right.
That's right. It is what it is. Best action game, Black Myth Wukong, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, and Warhammer 40k Swiss Marine 2. I think Black Myth Wukong is probably going to win, but I would say this is one of those times where Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is actually very deserving of its spot here. The campaign is great. Zombies is really fun, and they've really made this one of the games. You definitely need to check this one out. On Game Pass if you don't play Call of Duty much. Randy, what you think?
I haven't played a single one of these games, so probably Call of Duty Black Ops at this point. Just because, like you said, it sounds like a lot of people are saying it's kind of a return to form and a positive Call of Duty game for the first time in a while.
These are like 5 really, really solid, to great games that people really like this year. I know Marc was a big Stellar Blade fan.
Yeah, I'd probably say that one.
But yeah, considering Wukong is going to be seen later, I would say Wukong probably takes this. But
it's usually kind of a hint.
Yeah, for sure. Best debut indie game: Animal Well, Balatro, Manor Lords, Pacific Drive, and Plucky Squire. All in here. I don't. To me, it doesn't bother me whether Balatro or Animal Well win. I think Balatro's. it kind of doesn't matter because both of them are in both the categories. So, but Balatro maybe sweeps both. Indie and debut indie.
Probably, which is disappointing because Animal Well is so good. I love Animal Well. We'll talk about it later as far as like our game of the years and stuff. But game is absolutely phenomenal. Shout out though to Plucky Squire. That was not a game made for us, but my daughter loves that game. My daughter absolutely loves Plucky Squire. Like, it was not the game that I was hoping for when we first saw the trailers. And I know it's not going to get a lot of love for this kind of stuff, but it nailed what it was going for. And my 7-year-old loves that game.
I'm glad to hear that because that's exactly what I thought of when I played that game. I was like, oh man, if my daughter was younger, I could probably get her to play this and she might like be into it and play more games because of it. I love the whole aspect of it, the storybook aspect of it and all that, but man, it's just very, very introductory to games. You're not going to get any kind of pushback from the enemies or anything like that. And it kind of just feels like you're going through the motions if you're somebody that's a veteran of games. But yeah, definitely love to hear that your daughter is enjoying it. What anything, Marc?
Pacific Drive.
Pacific Drive, yeah.
I still need to play that one.
Yeah, that's definitely. I'm glad to hear somebody's repping Pacific Drive here too. Best indie game, the aforementioned Animal One Balatro, also Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which is a incredible puzzle game. Neva, which I love, and then UFO 50, which is basically like a throwback to old NES games. It's cool to see that here too. So I'm sure Balatro is probably going to take this, but just wanted to give a shout out to Nevo.
Sure. I want to play UFO 50, but I don't know if I have the time. It looks awesome. It looks so cool.
And not gonna lie, anybody loves puzzle games. You want a puzzle game that's gonna stump you or make you really have to think about it, and also has like a crazy like story to it. Lorelei and Laser Eyes is one to check out for sure. Games for Impact, which I feel like has really lost its meaning the further we've gotten into years of this. But it includes Neva, includes Indica, which is another weird indie game that came out this year. Life is Strange Double Exposure, Tales of Kenzara Zao, another one of the Metroidvanias from this year. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 and Closer to the Distance. I'm going to assume Hellblade 2 is probably going to win just because, that whole game is kind of built around what the Games for Impact kind of has been about. So
my problem with this category is like 2 of these games are kind of failures. Like, that might be harsh, but it's true. And
but they still had an impact, maybe not sales wise, but
I thought the other one of these other games is like so like non-impactful that people barely realize it's even out.
Yeah,
it's not that kind of impact,
right?
It's not sales.
Different kind of impact.
No, I realize that, but like you didn't even finish Hellblade 2.
No,
Sean. Like,
no,
so like
I didn't.
So like, like how impactful is it to like you or just?
I don't think it's necessarily for that. It's more of like what it's built around, right? What for the people that have experienced that, it may affect them differently than I already know. It's the same concept from Hellblade 1, so it's just prettier and done in a little bit of a different style than Hellblade 1. So it's like I know what that game is. I didn't vibe necessarily with it.
Yeah.
But other people might have. I mean, it wasn't. Listen, we know Hellblade 2 didn't knock people's socks off. So yeah, but that's kind of not what it's trying to celebrate. But fair, Best performance. Brianna White from Rebirth obviously plays Aerith. Hannah Tell, who plays Max Caulfield, Life is Strange Double Exposure. Umberly Gonzalez, Shout out Venezuela. Shout out here. Star Wars Outlaws. Luke Roberts plays the main character in Silent Hill 2, and Melina Jurgens plays main character as Senua in Senua Saga Hellblade 2. To me, I feel like it's Brianna White's to lose, but I honestly shout out to Luke Roberts here because he does a hell of a job. Randy, I know it's a little bit hard for you because you like.
I hate it. I hate these categories.
Yeah.
No, Luke Roberts was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, Brianna Wright was great as Aerith. We'll see what she does in the third game, and she has a chance to win it again. But for me,
they'll replace her for that with an AI.
I thought Luke Roberts just killed that role. And
honestly, for me though, I feel like John Bentley should have been here instead of Brianna White because Barrett absolutely is the peak of the second game, and he does a fantastic job. But yeah, I get it. She makes herself more prominent, being a streamer and all that. So, and credit to her for that. Best score in music. I brought this up earlier, but Randy gets to make tough choices here again. Astrobot, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor, Silent Hill 2, and Stellar Blade. 5 fantastic soundtracks.
I'm so glad I haven't played the other 2 games because the other 3 is impossible. No, for me, it's Rebirth. Silent Hill is going to win another audio category in my mind. Astrobot has cute music, but the amount that is in Rebirth is phenomenal. Again, I haven't played Stellar Blade or Metaphor. I've heard they're both fantastic soundtracks too, but to me, it's Rebirth.
Stellar Blade has a lot of like near touches in it. So if you like the near soundtrack, that Stellar Blade follows a lot of that, which is, also the kind of inspiration for, which is why they have that DLC. And Metaphor is fantastic as well. I mean, I don't know if you heard the battle theme gets stuck in your head immediately.
It should be Metaphor because the problem with Rebirth is it's just kind of recycling good music, just better quality.
Oh, but there's a lot of good new music in that game that's not also,
but it's all a lot of the same music as even like the last game,
right? That's to me, that's the issue with Astrobot. There's a lot of recycled stuff from Playroom.
Yeah,
in there. It's great, but it's a lot of recycled stuff from Playroom as well. Best sound design, which is somewhere in this list that I'm
where did it
looking
go?
at. Yeah, it's like
I mean, this best audio.
Yeah, best audio design.
Okay, but it's Astrobot, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Hellblade 2, and Silent Hill 2. Definitely from an atmosphere standpoint, Silent Hill 2 is fantastic.
This might be the one award it should win.
Yeah. I could see Astrobot winning too because it does stuff with the microphone and the different, things that you get when you get stuff in that game. So this is going to be a tough one. I could see Silent Hill 2 winning this one. But man, I wouldn't be surprised if Astrobot wins too. Going up for best art direction, Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, Metaphor, and Neva. Shout out to Neva on that. Fantastic art. Oh my God, there's times walking in that game, I'm like, wow, what is that behind me? I want to take a million pictures. But also Astrobot it was another game where I'm just constantly taking pictures in that game too, of just not just the different bots, but just every world is special, it feels like, and the different powers and what they do. Just Metaphor has also obviously got great art. What do you think, Mark?
Of that list, if I say Metaphor, Astrobot's I guess fine, but like a lot of it's just from the previous one. It's just more blown out.
Hey, listen, Robert, I don't have time for this. All right, I got stuff I got to get done, but I wanted to hop on and do a little rant and talk about some games for a minute. All right, I don't have time. You know what? I'm gonna give it to Neva. I still need to play this game, but the amount of time. This is like the one game. That's what I love about the Game Awards, because the nominees would come out and I'm go, what the hell is that? I know Sean has talked about this game, but the fact that it's popping up everywhere, it's like now I have to play it. So I'll give it to that because I've heard good things.
Yeah. I mean, if you liked Grease, then that one's right up your alley because it's similar, except this one has combat. Also moving on from that, best narrative, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth Metaphor, Hellblade 2, and Silent Hill 2. Okay, this is where I think we might have my issue with this is, look, I get it. I have never played Silent Hill 2 before this. So I have never experienced the narrative. And I get that there are many people that have not either. But this is still the same narrative from the original game. So why are we honoring that narrative in 2024? I don't know.
Because
well, by that metric, you could say, hey, it's the same damn story as in Final Fantasy VII. Like,
no, well, I mean, yes, but they've changed a lot of that game. So,
but there's also a theory going around for Silent Hill 2, if you want to get really nerdy about it, that Silent Hill 2 Remake is a sequel as well. There's a whole theory about it. I won't spoil it till you beat the game, and then we could discuss. But
is that when you become a dog?
Well, the dog just running everything. All right.
Yeah.
But
fair enough.
There were theories 20 years ago of the same thing, and there were side things in the remake that have pushed people to go even crazier with it. I'm having a lot of fun getting into the lore of this game. However, I'm with you. It should not be Silent Hill 2 because narratively it's the same. But I haven't played the other three. Rebirth to me was not as much the narrative. This was more of the buddy version or section of Final Fantasy. Hopefully the third one nails the narrative part of it. So I'm sure like a metaphor will win it, even though
hopefully it doesn't Mass Effect 3 itself.
Yeah, please, God, if they don't
stick
the landing, like part of me is hoping, especially because I've heard such good things about Metaphor, and if it wins, then absolutely, I'm sure it deserves it. But part of me is hoping, because Remake didn't win a lot of awards in 2020 because Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima and so many amazing games came out in 2020, so it didn't win a lot. I'm worried that it's not going to win a lot here because of games like Metaphor and a few other games that have a chance to kind of steal awards. I'm hoping at Lord of the Rings itself, where when the third one finally comes out, then all of the award show go, you know what, your trilogy was too good. Here's everything now.
Exactly.
And then you win everything. But they got to stick the landing for that to even be possible.
Look, part of me is also worried about that, but also the fact that very much like Return of the King, it's done. You don't have to worry about if it's like 80 hours long, because we're all going to play it for 80 hours to get to that end of the story, right? We don't have to worry about in this case, if it's like 200 hours long with all the side stuff and all the whatever, we don't have to worry about that because it's the last game, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about making sure you appeal to this person trying to make it their first Final Fantasy or whatever, like you try to do with Rebirth, even though I'm sure they will in some aspects. But I think that they know they have to stick it. They have to. So, and they did announce that now it's officially the story part is done. They have done listening to whoever they're going to listen to or whatever they're going to, the feedback they're going to take in as far as the story. So going to be interesting in these next couple of years that we have left of waiting, what else comes out about it or whatnot. But look, I think Metaphor is going to win just because everybody's lauded that narrative, especially coming out in a time period, especially for the United States, that was election centric or whatnot. So I wouldn't be surprised Metaphor wins, but shout out to Infinite Wealth as well. That had a tremendous narrative that especially
it had a good story, but I barely remember what happened.
Yeah, A big thing. What it come out end of January, early February. Like I said, I feel like it's getting Horizon this year, where there's like, oh yeah, that game came out.
Yeah, also it's that like part of that story will not stick with you if you've only played the Ichiban part. If you don't have any attachment to Kiryu at all, a lot of that story is not going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, best game direction: Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor. This is one that's interesting because like a lot of these could win. Like Rebirth obviously stuck to its direction, whether you liked it or not. Astrobot has great game direction, and you can watch them talk about behind the scenes for that as you can for Rebirth. Balatro has great game direction too, so lots of interesting thoughts.
I'd probably say Astrobot, but
Yeah,
that's just me. I haven't played Black Kong, so I can't comment on that one.
Yeah, I'd probably go Astrobot too. There's so many just wild details that they added that was just for one level, and the fact that they had so many things and they kept it fresh throughout all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the DLC has been fun to go back and mess around with, and yeah, I'd probably go Astrobot.
I would say Astrobot as well. Although I wouldn't be surprised also if like Wukong gets a shout here too for that. It's a pretty long book series to have to condense into a game, so credit to them for that. Game of the year, and here we go. We're gonna go through this, and then Randy can have his rant. I'm probably gonna rant too. I don't know how Marc feels about this because Marc is technically the only one that has played Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree, which is nominated for Game of the Year. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor Fantasio, Black Myth Wukong, Balatro, and Astrobot are your 6 Game Awards Game of the Year nominees. Do you feel like this was set up for Elden Ring to win again? Is the prevalent idea I keep seeing floated around on social media?
No, because I don't think it will win. Like I said, it barely introduced anything new. And it's like, yeah, it's more of the same, I guess, but that's why like Madden doesn't win like Game of the Year stuff.
I'm trying to remember. Has there been a franchise that's won multiple Game of the Years before? Like even sequels of games that come out and they also win?
I'd say Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid.
Ragnarok didn't win, right? The year that it won.
That's what I'm saying for the game
because God of War won, but then Ragnarok did not win in 2022. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
so that's the Game Awards specifically, no, because it's not. It's only been around for like 10 years. So
yeah,
but I just feel like with Elden Ring already winning, like there have been so many opportunities for the same franchise to win again, and it doesn't happen. Like you said, right. God of War, and then God of War.
Yeah, because Elden Ring won the year that God of War Ragnarok was nominated.
2022.
Yeah.
So part of me is like that. I mean, yes. I mean, if you want to go through the rant, I do not believe that this should be up for Game of the Year because it's not a game. It's not a new game. It's just added stuff to.
But you can't buy it on its own.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess they did re-release it, re-release Elden Ring with it like baked in, but it's not a standalone product. You need Elden Ring to play it.
I've always had this argument when I come on with you guys for the show for our Game of the Year, or when we went back and did the whole decade deal a couple of years ago, where to me expansion should not count because it's just a fancy way of saying DLC. Because I mean, there are some games that'll fix that, or will try to fast line you to the expansion, but like I can't just jump on and play the 5th expansion of World of Warcraft. Like I need to build up to it. I know it's been out so long that they've had workarounds for it, but to me, expansion should not count, and DLC should never count because it's just expansions of that game. Like Marc just said, you can't buy this on its own. You can't. It's not a standalone game. And to me, I am totally fine with it getting thrown in with expansions for different side awards or whatever, because you know what? We're here to celebrate games and let's have a good time. But for Game of the Year, let's have games that came out this year, please. And that's all I ask. There are so many other games I would have liked to have seen on this list, and Elden Ring takes a spot. And I'm worried it's going to win because Elden Ring and that developer, like, people just go nuts over FromSoft, and I'm pretty sure they're the only developer that's won twice. So I'm worried that it's going to win, and I might go on a bigger rant. But there are, for as much as people have went out and said 2024 is a down year, pretty darn good year. Like, we have a lot of games and a lot of really good games to choose from, and a little disappointed that we didn't get an extra cool game here.
Yeah, I feel like, this could have been a spot to go select Dragon Infinite Wealth or one of the other games that have been nominated several times in other categories. And unfortunately, it goes to a game that listen, it's not even, I turn on Elden Ring and then I get to go into a separate slot in Elden Ring that lets me play this. You have to get into a huge section, a huge part of the way through Elden Ring to be able to get to the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. So
check the picture I just sent you, Sean. You'll like it.
Yeah, it's like I don't get the you cannot play this without the other game. So therefore, it is Elden Ring, and this is DLC for that game. So therefore, it is not its own game.
So, to just go with that, there is a category for exactly this: best ongoing game.
Exactly, and they stuck Cyberpunk last year, which many thought should. Cyberpunk 2077's expansion, was, many people thought, is on the same level of Elden Ring this year.
Yeah,
right. And we're going, is it good enough to win Game of the Year? And it did for some sites, which, again, their prerogative, right? Their site. But when you're Geoff Keighley and you're trying to promote that this is supposed to be the representation of the games in general, this is supposed to be your Oscars or your VMAs or whatever equivalent you want to give it, right? And you have no say in this. This is the problem when you try to say you have no say in this. It makes it very difficult to say that you don't have any say in this when we know well and good that you have a, very much like with Kojima, you have a very buddy-buddy relationship with Miyazaki and FromSoft. And it's very difficult to not. Why put out this statement at all when this has been something that you could have done any other year? You did it because you knew this was going to cause controversy. And it's like, if you know it's going to cause controversy, and I get it that these judges decided that, right? The critics and the people that made these, that are the ones that chose this, knew this as well and could have decided to use their own criteria for it. But it's just like, you could have criteria for this. You could have, say, okay, when we talk about remakes or remasters, there's got to be a 10-year gap between when the original game came out to where, okay, Silent Hill 2 has been long enough. PS2s are considered retro. It's been long enough. All right, that's a new game at this point, right? But say some other remaster, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, not long enough, doesn't count, right? It's not that hard to do, to put qualifiers to this. It's not that hard to say, if you need the first game to be able to play this, it's not a new game, regardless of whether it came out in 2024 or not. And therefore you allow one of these games that are truly deserving to be nominated. And the thing is, it's not like one of these token nominations where you go, I know Marc was like, it's not going to win. No, it very well could win. And it could win not just categories. It could win Game of the Year again. And it's like, man, that kind of sucks because this is the biggest show of shows. and it's not these other games are not going to get their credit, you know.
Yeah, but in the end, even if it does win, this is just a side award thing, anyways, and it is what it is. But I'm just going to defend Geoff real quick because I know everyone gets on him and is like, oh, he's rigging this. No, he comes out with a statement like that because he knows what's now been nominated because he has to put the whole thing together. So it's not like he's out there to announce the nominees and he's seeing it for the very first time. Like he's getting the results and he's putting all the information together.
I feel like he's had those results longer than just today or the couple of days that he put out the statement.
Like, yes, but you don't put out the statement way in advance then because you the whole point is you put out the statement so it's in people's minds, and then when it's out, you're like, hey, I warned you. Because he knew it was going to be an issue. But I agree. Now, he has the control over the regulations. But if it's not stated before the voting begins, you can't go start getting the votes and you go, wait a minute. I was not expecting you guys to vote for this. So now we have to go back and redo it. Now, hopefully down the line, but no, again, we should not care over the top about this stupid Game Awards thing. It's just celebrate games and then watch a 17-hour event with an award every so often. It's a 17-hour event.
Where the awards are just like given out in 10 seconds, and then
5 awards in 10 seconds, and then we go back to our stuff. But to me, the one thing that I will defend Geoff with is I don't think he's getting everyone's results and going, nah, but him. I gotta go to him. It's like these are the results that are coming in.
Right. And I don't think he's messing with that at all.
He just doesn't have the rules in place that I think a lot of us would like to have in place. So that's where I'll defend Geoff. This is not some conspiracy on Geoff where his buddy is there. Because guess what? We just talked about his best buddy. Death Stranding did not win that year. Yeah. Right. If Death Stranding's not winning Game of the Year, then I would believe Geoff is not twisting things. Because guess what? Death Stranding was our Game of the Year until we went back and fixed it.
But no, again, it's like it is what leads people to say those things, right? Because of all the timing and all of that. And it's like, I don't think there's a conspiracy as far as like, oh, is Geoff messing with it? No, he's not. At the end, he doesn't really care necessarily. It feels like it's his least important part of this entire show, right? He wants the ads, he wants the announcements because that's what brings people to it. The awards are kind of just a thing that's also included in here. Yeah. And at least he gives people that know about the games the ability to express that with the voting process that they choose. But it's frustrating in that way because you do want to see mostly games that are from that year be the ones that got nominated, and not one where you need a previous game in order to play this. But still, it is what it is. They're out there. These are the nominees. You can go vote yourself, right?
Can I ask? I want to go around the table real quick, and I want to start with Marc. Take out Elden Ring. What game do you put in its place?
Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Okay, I take that back. I don't.
That's another game that got totally shafted because it came out. It was basically the first big game besides Prince of Persia to come out. So
that's fair. Sean,
Infinite Wealth for me. I would have put that there.
Yeah, another one that's really early. That's probably me too. I would have put Silent Hill 2 here because it's I put it in the other nominees.
It probably would have been. I wouldn't be surprised if Silent Hill 2 would have been in there because they got nominated a bunch of other times, right?
No,
so it's most likely.
And again, I have no problem with other nominees for Elden Ring. It's just for Game of the Year, and it's the same thing with Silent Hill. It's like as much as I will defend Resident Evil 2 remake because they changed a lot. Right? Silent Hill 2 remake, like the story is the exact same, and they go to the exact same places. They don't change enough. Yeah, I think they modernized a lot of stuff, but probably like a Yakuza game that I have not played I'd totally be fine with as far as getting in on the 6th, but it's never happening. Robert, stop it.
Yes, it's not. Also, I like Mark's joke about, what if they made horse armor?
Yeah.
Yes.
2006's Game of the Year is Oblivion Horse Armor.
Could have been missed opportunity, 100%.
Right. But no,
You know what? Let's just throw Indiana Jones in here just for fun. We don't know if it's going to be any good. It probably won't be. We'll just throw it in there. Because why?
Yeah. Not? Or look, there's other games like Dragon Age of Velgard got nothing here, and I know people were upset about that as well. But these things are what they are. There's always some controversy. I hope we're not getting wrap it up signs for the actual devs.
Oh, 100% we will. Please get out of the way. We have commercials to show.
I feel like he's not going to do that this year because people railed on him so hard about it last year. He always does this. He fixes the one big thing that they make a big deal about, but then something else happens that causes the problem.
But they always rail on him, and he never fixed it for the past 8 years or 9 years. So
this is Winter Game Fest with side awards. That's just all it is.
It's true.
We need to stop thinking like it's the Oscars. Like it's just to celebrate games and watch a bunch of ads for 3 hours. That's how it is.
That's true.
But what's winning? What is going to win this? Because I have no clue. This is one of those years. Like we've had a few of these, but this is one of those years that I honestly like. There's 3 or 4 that if you told me at one, I would go. Yeah,
my pick I think is Metaphor. Is probably going to win. Mark,
I would like it to be Metaphor, but I think it'll be Rebirth.
That's funny because I think I would like it to be Rebirth.
Yeah,
but I'm
here
going with Astrobot.
You know what? I would be very happy if Astrobot won because that means we're going to get more Astrobot.
Yes.
And maybe Sony decides that platformers are back in vogue and we get more besides just Astrobot.
But really, obviously I haven't played Black Myth Wukong, and I don't think it's my kind of a game, but I've heard fantastic things, unless you hear some of the people from Kind of Funny, Andy especially. But other than Elden Ring, any of these other ones, Balattro's not going to win, but it was an absolute craze. I shouldn't say that. It Takes Two won, so you never know. But I would love it. If
Hades won too, right? Or am I wrong?
I don't know. Hades
lost.
Yes,
Hades won. Yes, Hades won that year.
No, it didn't. It lost Last of Us Part 2.
Oh, okay. No, it won other awards.
Yeah, it won other. Yeah, probably more prestigious awards.
It won like the BAFTAs and
yeah.
So no, you're right. Last of Us Part 2 did win that year. But you're correct in that Elden Ring would be the first time that you have the same franchise possibly win, but
Joseph Fares guy makes It Takes Three, then that'll win again.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be the thing there. Yeah, because God of War didn't do it. Technically, FromSoft did it twice because of Sekiro and Elden Ring, but
they're the only developer that's won it twice.
Yeah. So, but hey, you got to the event has to happen in order for it to finally be counted. So, December 12th, less than a month away at this point. Hopefully, we get some really, really cool announcements and surprises. And just, that it's a good show and that's what matters in the end. But I guess finally moving on from that, maybe less ranty. I don't know.
That I have no place to be here then. That's all I do.
I don't know. Maybe you will rant. I don't know how you, we've had this discussion before about Xbox's direction, but Phil Spencer kind of clarified a lot of this in a big interview with Bloomberg. He had several talking points. One of them being that yes, they are working on an Xbox handheld, but it's years away because he wants the team to look at the market and basically be able to figure out what are the most important things that need to be in an Xbox handheld and make sure that that's included pretty much. I'm just going to go through all this stuff, and then we can kind of like, you could talk about what you want, because if we go through every part of it individually, I feel like we're going to take long. He also does say that they are going to continue doing consoles, at least in the future. Obviously, we don't know past the next one what's going to be happening in the next 5 or plus more years, but he did say that they are going to continue doing consoles. He will not rule out any game. There is no red line when it comes to games coming to other consoles, including Halo and Gears. He says they're still looking into acquisitions. They are not done. He said that before, but he also reiterated imminent. He said there's no deals imminent, but that, you know, it's been a good area for them to learn creatively from other teams. And if there's a really opportunity to partner with, especially China, or in other areas where they're lacking, they definitely will. He talks about partnering possibly with Tencent for the mobile store, which has now been delayed. Avowed is the next game that's going to get the early access where you pay money and you get to play the game early. Even if you have Game Pass, you get like half off the game to then play it 5 days early. They also had a documentary for South of Midnight you can go watch. And then, well, we could do the Warcraft stuff separate, but that's also technically Microsoft now. So, but what do you think, Randy? If you had to choose, let's say maybe not an Xbox, what if there's rumors PlayStation's doing one as well? What do you think is integral to being in a handheld?
Games.
If you're gonna get, well, besides games,
that's it, 100%.
But what feature?
What's the only handheld system that has worked in the last decade? The Switch. What does the Switch have? Games. What are the other handhelds that completely failed to do? I'm talking about the PS Vita and the PSP. They failed to support the system with games to make sure that you have something to play. Period. Yeah. End of story. So for Microsoft to make this work, Game Pass has to be on it to allow you to have access to that. It has to be able to play all of those games and have games that only work for it. Period. End of story. Done. If not, then it's going to, I mean, the Vita, which I absolutely loved. I loved my Vita, but there were never any good games for it. Like it just sat there and just died. So,
yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the one thing Microsoft is struggling to do the most. Is come out with games.
That's the problem with Microsoft wanting like their own handheld console or device is they'll want it to be a Microsoft exclusive, and that's that'll kill it. Because people like the Steam Deck because it's part of Steam. You have 500 games on Steam or whatever, 1,000 games or whatever. Like if they go, here's their Xbox library, it's like, okay, what about Steam? No, we don't want that on there because that'll eat part of our market share. Like, okay, well, goodbye.
You know, I think as part of this whole thing and this marketing campaign that they've also done where this is an Xbox and this is not an Xbox, and basically everything's an Xbox except for like the, you know, cat litter box or something else.
They'll bolt a fucking processor onto that eventually.
I feel like actually what they're going to wind up doing is I think that all the rumors that we're getting about they're going to work with possibly PC storefronts and that they're going to not only just have Game Pass, but it's going to give you the option to either do. He didn't outright say that it's going to be native, right? That it's not only going to be cloud, but I think it's going to give you the option to do both. If say you're in an area where, you know, you want to just try out a game and you don't have the space and you don't want to download it, you could do the cloud from there as well. Obviously, the most important part is games, but I don't think that would make them have to abandon the strategy they're doing, and I don't think that they're going to do that. This is just another thing that allows it to be an Xbox. And I think as long as Game Pass has games, which, like you said, Randy, that's been the problem, except for apparently this stretch of time between October and December, where they all of a sudden figure out that let's get a bunch of games out. Yeah, it's just I think that they can look at the whole deal, but it's basically got to be as almost as open as a Steam Deck and work with Steam, work with Epic Game Store. Whereas Sony's probably going to try to do a PS Vita 2, and as cool as that is, yeah, it's going to do things the Portal can't do, which is be able to play it without needing the PS5. But then you run into the same problem of the Switch, right? Where it's like, are you going to use it are you able to just dock it and then keep playing it on the PS6 or whatever? Same thing with the Xbox, right? Are you able to just put it on a dock that you buy separately and then it keeps playing from there? Like, how does that, or I guess you just turn it off and then you use the cloud save to play on your, but yeah, like all that integration has to work really well. And also the graphical power has to be somewhere where it's not too much of a drop off from what you're getting on the system too. I think for a lot of the gamers, I think for the common person, the casual gamer, they may not care so much. They just want to be able to, play that at your house without having to be stuck on the TV, which, that is something that helps the Switch be what the Switch does in that case. So, Randy, how long do you think until we see Halo on a PS5?
2 years.
2
They'll
years?
hold out for 2 years and then they'll throw it on there. But they'll throw, if they're smart, they'll put the Master Chief Collection out there and then say, hey, come play the other games over on our system. Yeah. But they won't do that. They'll just throw it all on there.
Mark, how long do you think till we start seeing the big Xbox franchises over there? Or do they hold them out till
I still think they have. I think they kind of have to hold them out because it's like, why? If Halo's going to be on a PS5, and assuming people still cared about Halo, what's the point of getting an Xbox at all?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole part of this this marketing campaign, right?
Why didn't he put up hold up the sign saying a PS5? This is an Xbox also. It's like he didn't do that.
That I feel like that's like the unwritten thing. It's like the unwritten one where it's like we can't just put that out there, right? We can't just put up a PS5 quite yet or a Switch and go, oh, this is also an Xbox, because then the outrage is going to be even worse than it already is. And he's going to have one of those podcasts again where they backtrack for 3 months and try to quell the fire. I feel like that they just can't do that quite yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a time where they do.
I'm more bothered by him going like, oh, we're going to keep acquiring companies, and it's like, what, and not doing shit with them, or right. What are you going to?
I agree.
What's your plan here? Like,
my worry about it is we're acquiring companies, and then how many of those studios are going to close, and people are going to lose their jobs because, I mean,
it's not like everyone hired at Microsoft in the past 2 years, or got worried about Microsoft is still there. Like Microsoft has had plenty of layoffs, so it's like, what company would want to be acquired by them unless they're really desperate?
Right, but let's say like Ubisoft continues to trend downwards, and somehow they are able to pay off Tencent their part and go, okay, let's buy Ubisoft too to get those franchises for Game Pass or whatever.
That would never happen.
Yeah,
because it'd be too monopolistic or too anti-consumer. So
I don't know. I just feel like with the stuff that they're doing, where they're putting their games everywhere, you can't really say that they're monopolistic because nobody's missing out on their games, right?
Except for the part where Ubisoft has the cloud services crap for Europe, and that was one of the conditions for the acquisition in the first place.
Right, I understand that point, but I'm just saying that's the whole thing. Is I feel like that's part of the play here too. Is they're doing this for the money, right? Obviously, you get money on putting your game on PlayStation and Switch, but it's also so that they can use that to parlay into other acquisitions at some point to say, well, hey, we're nothing is exclusive here. We're putting it all on these other systems, so why not let us acquire another studio or whatever? I worry about that just from the aspect of it sucks. Like, I don't want to see it just because it's not good for the industry when you start condensing even more. And you have less players, but it's also not good if Xbox just completely goes away and you only have Nintendo and Sony, and essentially Sony will be by themselves because Nintendo's over there in its own little world.
Don't worry, Sega will come back.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen here. How do you guys feel about that? This whole system that, and I know Microsoft's not the only one that does it, right? EA does it, Ubisoft does it. Do you like it, this whole early access thing, or do you feel like you wish it went away? Like, does it not bother you at all? Where do you stand on the whole early access, like paying for early access thing?
Honestly, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it's a way for them to make a little bit of extra money, and for those that are super excited to try to get to it. For like single player experiences where the story really matters, you kind of have to worry for about a week or whatever to get into it. But for those that really want to get into it, I know like MLB The Show does it where you can get it a few days early. I'd never do. I can wait my few extra days, and in a way it kind of works as a test for other gamers of like, all right, we'll see a bunch of people get the early access to it, and we'll see what they think of the game, and then I'll kind of have more fixed expectations, because yes, reviews are one thing, but then you can actually see real gamers do it too. I know Silent Hill 2 came out early. You can get early access for that as well. So I was kind of seeing how things were going there. So yeah, I honestly have no problem with it. I rarely, if ever, am a part of it, but it doesn't bug me by any means.
Mark,
the only kind of problem with early access, if it's early enough, then there's not really a big groundswell when it finally does come out for release, unless it's an actual like really big game. Like when Hades 2 eventually finally launches, that'll play a fairly big game. But there are a ton of games that have been early access for like 6 months, and it's like, oh, we finally have version 1.0, and it's like, okay, and or like.
Yeah, I don't. The stuff that Steam does with the indie games or whatever, that doesn't bother me at all. That's your decision. You want to pay the $40 to, but you own the game as well, right? Like you're then owning the game and deciding to play that game early in its state that it's in order to kind of help them. I've seen the thing that EA does, or Ubisoft, or in this case Xbox, right? Especially Xbox, because you're paying, you still have to play it on Game Pass. You're just getting a discount to be able to play the game early, but you still technically don't own it, which is weird. But then it's also kind of like, I've seen people attribute it to like almost like the online pass that we used to pay for to play games online with EA, for example, of like, you're just kind of, they're goading you into wasting money to be able to, because you're such a big fan of this game, to then play it early, but it's still like just 3 or 4 days or whatever. And if the concept didn't exist, you wouldn't have to like change when release dates happen and have all this different tiers of, different things. It doesn't bother me because I'd rather them do something that doesn't force me to play the game early, and they can get people to spend money that way instead of charging me $10 more off the top for the game. Like, if that means that we're not going to get to the point where games cost $80 because you have enough people buying early access of those games or whatever, then I'm fine with that. Because I don't have to play the game early. I can decide if I want to. And also, at least with Game Pass, if it's an EA game, for example, you have that 10-hour free trial that you can do and then try the game yourself in that time. If you want to, if you like it, then pay the money to play it early. If not, then you just wait till the game comes out and decide what you want to do. I like having options. I'd rather that than say, okay, all games cost $80 now. I know it's a predatory practice, and I know people don't like that, but I still think it's not as bad as like microtransactions or pay to win or loot boxes or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
I think this is probably the better way to go.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so finally done with that. Moving on to the Warcraft stuff really quick. I know it's probably going to only matter to Mark for the most part. I know you don't necessarily care about housing and things, Mark, but WoW is finally going to have housing after all these years.
A feature they introduced or they showed off in the beta in 2003. They're finally adding into the game.
And also, there's now a Warcraft battle chest with remasters of Warcraft 1 and 2 and this patch for Warcraft 3 Reforged that is apparently going to fix a lot of stuff with the game and make assets from the original Warcraft 3 into HD. You can buy the whole thing for $40. Cool. You interested in this at all? Or
Not really. I mean, maybe Warcraft 2, but that's the one I've actually really played and liked.
I think this is cool from a game preservation perspective. Not my kind of games, so I personally don't care, but I know there's people that are excited about that and getting to go back and play those like originators of the strategy genre. So go for it, people that are excited.
Yeah.
Speaking of being excited, Astrobot maybe gets more DLC because there's more credits that reveal possible bots that have not been put into the game yet. And thanks to the one that they just found recently for a game that Mark likes a lot, Tumba, it would make it now where you at least have 5 possible characters that could be put in. So maybe another set of 5 speedrun DLC. This is Rayman, Beyond Good and Evil, and Assassin's Creed. And then Croc Legends of the Gobos, which is getting that remaster that's going to be exclusive to Good Old Games for the where you get the original version with it. And then Tomba also got credits there as well. What
Sure.
Would you be up for 5 more levels, Randy?
Absolutely. Just keep dripping them out. You know what?
Yeah.
If you drip it out long enough, you can win Game of the Year next year.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. All it takes is having some speedrun DLC, and then
you just get a DLC in there. You can win again next year. It's gonna be great because nothing's coming out next year.
But okay,
It's a joke.
was good. Do you think if Astrobot were to win, let's say Game of the Year, do you think that maybe we get like an expansion for Astrobot?
I don't think it matters whether they win Game of the Year or not. It's based on how the sales have been. I don't think they're going to go, oh, this Geoff Keighley award show. If we win Game of the Year, we're gonna hit the.
Well, they've already sold 1.5 million copies, which is great.
And to me, that should be enough to. All right, let's go. Let's just keep expanding. And I honestly think Astrobot is that perfect game to just have expansions out. I don't think we need an Astrobot 2. Right? This is the perfect game to, in a year or two, have. All right, we've unlocked 2 new worlds or whatever, and you just build it up even further, or you do expansions on it, and this could be that forever game that Sony was begging for from the other games that they announced.
How ironic, right?
All these other games that were going to be great. Last of Us is going to be this forever game. Oh wait, we canceled it. All these other games that get canceled. No, Astrobot was your forever game that you've had this whole time.
Yeah, that number that they released not too long ago, 37% of the people that bought this is their first Sony first-party game that they bought in 2 years.
That's wild.
That's also
good.
A pretty huge indicator of like, you reached the kids with this one. You reached people that are not necessarily in your ecosystem that decided to get this. So, making it a forever game, or maybe not forever, but making it a game that you extend it. I agree with you too. It's like, when I went back to Playroom, and Mark talked about this too when we went through like talking about this game a bunch, is there's a lot from Playroom and there's a lot from the VR game as well that they took and kind of like made better in this game. So unless you're going to tell me that they have so much different stuff that they have enough to make an Astrobot 2, which I'm totally fine with if they decide to do that. But like, if you're just going to take these original concepts and just make it into a expansion or a big DLC for Astrobot, I think that would be a good idea too. Have more bots, have more all that stuff. I'm fine with that too. It'd be great for Astrobot to kind of keep getting to go on for that. Fellow Blade getting a PC version in 2025, Mark.
Yeah,
you get this one
surprised. Too? No, I didn't even buy Stellar Blade 1 or on PS5. I used Jens's copy.
Right.
But I'm sure like the second it comes out on PC, nude mods will appear on Steam Workshop.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
I'm sure that will appear.
They're probably already in the works.
yeah, that's not going to be surprising. It happened for Rebirth, or it happened for Remake. I'm sure it's going to have a Rebirth too. So, yeah.
Can finally see Red 13 naked. Can't wait.
Splinter Cell, the Splinter Cell movie has been canceled. We talked about the Mass Effect like TV show. They were shopping that around as a movie really early on in like 2008, 2010. This movie's been first announced since 2012. 12 years in development. It has now officially been canned. It's supposed to star Tom Hardy, also from Venom fame. They just couldn't make this work, according to the officials that talked about it. And also, there is other stuff from Ubisoft coming. There's supposedly the animated series that's happening on Netflix. Who knows if that's getting done? And then, of course, the remake for Splinter Cell that's happening game-wise. Yeah.
Remember when Oscar Isaac was attached to a Metal Gear Solid movie?
Yeah.
And remember how that didn't happen? And he was
Yet.
attached for like 5 years. Well, and now he's not attached at all. So,
I know. It's just
yeah.
What do you think, Randy? Do you think
are you all right? Don't die over it.
I choked on my own spit by accident. So
John is so upset about this movie getting canceled. It broke his heart. No, I can't say it's disappointing by any means because I had zero expectations from it. Yes, video game adaptations have gotten better, but it doesn't mean that I'm like disappointed when something that I haven't seen goes away.
This is like the first time I even heard of it. So
I remember them talking about it, but this is before you had all these like video game movies now all of a sudden, or TV shows all of a sudden becoming a thing. So
here's the thing. Yeah. I'm sure eventually Amazon will pick up Splinter Cell and it'll be like another companion piece to Jack Ryan and all that other,
that could happen.
Crap they make. And it'll be fine. Like they seem to actually like have a pretty good track record for adaptations.
And you know what? The Splinter Cell movie is still going to come out before Beyond Good and Evil 2 comes out. So it's Ubisoft still has that going.
Right. Exactly. Well, thank you, Mark, for giving me the segue. Amazon's Tomb Raider show is still in development as far as we know. And supposedly Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones fame may be the one that's going to play Lara Croft. What do you think?
That is awful casting.
Better or worse than the last Tomb Raider movie casting?
Worse. I like the first one, or not the first one, but the last one.
The Alicia Vick. Yeah. I mean, at least Alicia Vikander like looks kind of like Lara Croft.
Yeah, she looks like the newer version of Lara. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually like that movie. I thought it was good. So. Hopefully Sophie Turner can surprise us, but I don't see it.
Right. Yeah. The real solution to this problem is they need to use the Amazon time machine, go back 20 years and grab Haley Atwell and have her do it.
Yeah. I'm not going to be able to equal the Angelina Jolie, I guess, for that. Hey, and a cool move at least. GOG continues to be forthcoming about they've been the ones that have always been talking about, we let you own your games, right? As opposed to Steam or whatever. And now they are going further and announcing that there's 100 classic games and they're planning to add on to that. Hopefully, obviously the devs have to sign on to this in a game preservation program. Well, they will continue to make the game available on your current version of PCs. And that's cool. I wish more places would do this.
Yes.
Yes. You know, I don't know how much Steam would have to do to make this a possibility on their end, especially considering everybody's libraries for that.
That'd be a bigger problem because they have a lot of games that are just incompatible or, you know, that are tied to like weird DRM systems and shit like that. So
yeah. But hey, I mean, if God can get this program to grow to like 200, 300 games or whatever, that's awesome, right? I'd love for the consoles to do this, but I guess we can just be happy in that if, you know, the rumors are true that PlayStation chose AMD for the PS6, and that's what their biggest reasoning was for, you know, backwards compatibility. And we know how Xbox feels about that. They supposedly have a program for that as well. If we can keep, you know, now I don't know if we'll ever get Nintendo on the train to keep going through this past Switch too, but
no, we will. It's just be a subscription service though.
yeah. Like I just want to see games continue to be able to be played without necessarily always being a remake, because, you know, I know this is how you make money. I get it. Like, hey, I'm Randy loved the Silent Hill 2 remake. I loved it. And we all love the Resident Evil ones and all that stuff, but not everything needs to be getting a remake or remaster, and it's cool to just have those original versions. Whereas like even Silent Hill 2, right? You can't really play the original version without playing some crappy version that's on the PS3 or Xbox 360 that's in a collection that you know, not necessarily the easiest to find. So yeah, the more things you make available, the better for everyone. And some sad news here. Unfortunately, Tequila Works has filed for insolvency. I'm sorry, Randy, we couldn't get out of the show without talking about something.
Now, listen, Sean asked me to come on because we're talking Game Awards, but this was the real reason that he had me come on. I got it.
So this Madrid studio, which the last game they worked on was also the last League of Legends like story game, that Song of Nunu. They are now, but basically they're gone, and that kind of sucks. Again, like, they have, you know, Rhyme is probably their most, like, I guess, well-known game. They also did Sexy Brutale and Deadlight and stuff like that, but it sucks. I hate seeing this.
I loved Rhyme. I just had to look it up.
Yeah.
That game was so good. Oh, now I'm really sad.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't realize that was these guys.
Yep. Exactly. And yeah,
also,
until
Wikipedia, I don't want to pay you any money. Stop it.
But no, I hate this for the devs and for the studios. See this happening. Hopefully 2025 will be a better year for this, as you know, maybe we don't need as much downsizing now that people have kind of figured out what they need, and gaming industry understands that you can't do live service as much, you know. But we'll see how that goes. But lastly, looking into the games that are coming out this week, you know, because that never ends as we get closer and closer to the Thanksgiving and Black Friday time here. If you haven't played Stray yet and you needed to have it on Switch, you could do that tomorrow. You can also play Microsoft Flight Simulator tomorrow on Game Pass. This one, they actually try to make it more like a game, so maybe this will draw in more people than the usual flight sim fare. Genshin Impact finally comes to Xbox also, and Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl, also comes to Xbox and Game Pass. I'm probably going to check that out. Looks like it's really good. Happy for the devs to finally have that game out after all the stuff they've been through as well with the, you know, the war and everything. And yeah, I think that's kind of it for like the big stuff or kind of known things. So yeah, anything you want to shout out, Randy, or anything else that's coming out like the rest of the year you're looking forward to? Or?
The only two things, I'm still very curious about Indiana Jones. We'll see how that goes. And I'm a sucker. I'll be playing that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game when it comes out.
Yep, looks good.
Yeah, definitely Mind Morphin Power Rangers for me, and Fantasia and Neo Dimension. Already looking at that as well, especially with that Final Fantasy music crossover. That's going to be good. So, all right. Well, thank you, Randy, for coming on. Always
Yeah, no
cool
problem.
to have you. And well, until next time, everybody. See you later. Enjoy your games, and we'll be back next week.
Later.
Bye.